Just the facts, ma'am.
Abstracts and executive summaries are both important parts of a report because they cover just the facts. The in-depth details are saved for the main report. There are differences between abstracts and executive summaries, such as purpose and, often, length. In this segment, we'll look at some tips and techniques for creating effective ones. The main difference between the two is that readers scan abstracts to decide whether to read the main report, while readers will read executive summaries instead of the main report. As you can see from the figure, which is also in your textbook, each type has different purposes and placements in the source document. They do, however, require certain actions by the writer, regardless of the type of abstract or summary. They must be accurate, meaning that the original meaning must be clear and consistent with the source document. Complete, that is, convey all the information a reader would need to know in order to decide whether to read the source document in the case of abstracts, or to read instead of the source document in the case of the executive summary. Concise. Descriptive abstracts are usually just 1 to 3 sentences. Informative abstracts can be longer, but they are often limited to 100 or fewer words. For both the concluding and the executive summaries, bear in mind that your readers are very busy and will appreciate brevity. Readable. Abstracts and summaries are not the places to show off your knowledge of jargon or scientific terminology. Write in plain English. Now we'll look at abstracts in more detail. The two basic types of abstracts are descriptive and informative. Which one you decide to use will depend on the purpose and target audience of the main report. For business reports, you will often use the descriptive abstract to show readers what the report contains. So it is essentially the table of contents in a brief sentence or paragraph form. For scientific reports, you will use an informative abstract. It will include the same information as the descriptive abstract, but it will also include the results, conclusions, and recommendations. Readers of scientific abstracts can then decide if the entire report is relevant to their needs and interests. How can you write an abstract? Well, there is some good guidance in your textbook, but you'll need to wait until after you've finished writing the report for what I hope are obvious reasons. You can't explain what the report is about until it exists. When you do write it, the first sentence should announce the subject and scope. Abstracts must be written using proper grammar and normal report conventions. In other words, you spell out acronyms and abbreviations, write complete sentences, and use articles and transitions. This is not the place to introduce new material in the hopes of piquing the reader's interest in your document, because if they go looking for something that's not there, it's unethical and misleading. The same principles of writing abstracts tend to apply to summaries, but of course the summaries have different purposes. Readers will read the concluding summary to see how the writer has tied all the main points of the source document together, and the writer will assume that the reader has read, is familiar with, the information and terminology used in the source document. However, readers read executive summaries instead of the entire document. You will provide the entire document, of course, but the executive summary will be at the beginning, right after the table of contents. So if the reader wants to refer to it and find some more in-depth information, such as a particular table or figure, then it's available to them. Now remember, readers read abstracts to decide whether they want to read the entire document, and readers read executive summaries instead of the entire document. So it's important to write the executive summary after you finish writing the report, just as you would an abstract. However, the executive summary must provide all the details of your source document in a more concise manner. So you would include the purpose and scope, the methods and findings, how the results were obtained, your conclusions or recommendations, and the reasons for those recommendations, if you've been asked to do so, of course. Abstracts do not include figures or tables. You can include figures and tables in executive summaries, but only the most essential ones. The executive summary is meant to be read independently of the report or proposal, so you would not refer the reader to figures or tables in the main report. It follows the same sequence as your main document. That is, you will present the same kinds of information you would in an informative abstract, but you can provide more detail. Unlike the abstract, the executive summary is a standalone document, and the writer needs to assume that the reader will never read the source document. So your job is to provide the entire contents of the source document in a condensed format. How condensed? The recommended length is about 10% of the source document's length. So if you've written a 100-page report, for example, your executive summary would be about 10 pages long. The format will vary depending on your purpose and audience. Some prefer a narrative summary, while others may simply want a bullet list of talking points, similar to what would be used in a technical briefing. What should you not include in an executive summary? Avoid in-depth analysis and giving unnecessary opinions. If a reader wants analysis, then she or he can turn to the source document. You wouldn't tell the reader what the document means, just what it says. In other words, just the facts. You should also avoid describing how the source document was written. Summarize its contents. So to recap, the executive summary should answer the following questions for the reader. What is this document about? Why is it important to the stakeholders? What are the contents of the source document? And what are the main points in each section? Finally, after you've finished writing the source document and then finished writing the informative abstract or the executive summary, you'll need to conduct an acid test, meaning you should make sure that what you've written will actually be useful to the reader. One way to do this is read it aloud. As with other types of writing, this method will help you identify awkward sentence structure and misused words more easily. However, that may not be practical for longer documents. In this case, designate a beta reader who has never seen the source document before, and ask that person to read your abstract or executive summary and have them answer the questions posed on the previous slide. Specifically, what is the source document about? Why is it important? What are the contents and what are the main points? Now, if your beta reader can answer all the questions in the same way you thought he or she would, then all you will need to do is proofread it. You can never do that too often, and it's ready for transmittal. Otherwise, make the needed corrections, proofread again, and have a different beta reader review the executive summary. As with all writing projects, preparing good abstracts and executive summaries takes time and practice. Hopefully, this advice has been helpful to you.